Hey y'all, it's Dawn, and I'm so glad you're back. I've got another fun, budget-friendly DIY video for you today. I am so excited to be participating in today's playlist hosted by Teresa B. DIY. The playlist is in support of Fisher House Foundation. And I'll explain in more detail a little later. But now for the first Patriotic DIY. I had this half of a shutter in my stash. I cleaned it up and let it dry. I then sprayed it with flat white spray paint. Once the white paint was dry, I taped off a section with painter's tape and painted that part with blue chalk paint. And the footage of me doing that was so bad, I decided not to show it. The angle was terrible, and it made my eyes hurt trying to edit the video. I then used painter's tape to create stripes along the shutter. And let me tell you, this did take a while to do, and getting the stripes straight was a real pain. But after a while, I finally got it the way I wanted. I painted the stripes with red chalk paint. I wasn't worried about it being perfect because I knew I was going to distress it and make it look old and beautiful. After everything was dry and distressed, I used a paint marker to draw a star in the blue section of the shutter. And then came back in with white chalk paint to fill in the star. I used my heat gun to dry the paint and held it close to the star because I wanted some crackling in it. I then used a piece of sandpaper and distressed the star and the blue paint. I absolutely love how this old shutter turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments. I found this mirror in my stash and had an idea to make a tray with it. I started by cleaning it with Awesome Cleaner and realized how dirty it actually was. So I decided to wash it in the sink. Once it was cleaned and dry, I took it outside and spray painted it with flat black spray paint. While I waited for the paint to dry, I Mod Podged this Dollar Tree calendar page to the mirror. I bet I'm the only crafter that still has a 2021 calendar they have barely used. I covered the mirror with Mod Podge and then laid the calendar on top of it. I turned it over and used an X-Acto knife to cut off the part that was hanging over the sides. I guess you'd call it the excess. I couldn't remember the word. I did have some wrinkles in the paper, but I thought it would give the piece a little character. Next, I added a layer of hard coat Mod Podge to protect the paper. Now that the black paint was dry, I painted the entire frame, front and sides, with white chalk paint. I wanted the piece to be clean looking, so it did take several coats of the white. And let me tell you, getting into all the nooks and crannies was time consuming. But if you ask me, it was well worth it. To protect and seal the frame, I used Jolie finishing wax. I use the wax on about 90% of my furniture projects, and I just love it. You can find it in my Amazon store, and I highly recommend this wax for any of your projects. I put a little wax on an old t-shirt and rubbed it all over the frame. I flipped it over and replaced the mirror, attached the existing screws, and added a little hot glue around the edges to make sure the back was attached. I decided that I wanted the tray raised a little, so I used these dowel caps, also from my Amazon store, and stained them with some gel stain. Once the stain was dry, I used Gorilla Glue and hot glue to attach the feet to the tray. And just look at how high-end this tacky plastic frame turned out. I am in love with it. I decided to use some solo wood flowers from my stash for this DIY. I added blue and red paint to 2 plastic cups and then water to each and mixed. I stained the first flower with the red paint and a small paintbrush. I made sure I stained the inside and the outside of the flower. I didn't want any of the natural wood showing. To me, the flower looked more pink than red. I used paint with a little water mixed in and painted over the flower again. I probably should have added more of the red paint to the water in the cup. The smaller flower fit in the cup of water and blue paint. I dipped it in and played with it to make sure all the petals were covered. For the stems of the flowers, I used some Dollar Tree skewers and cut them down so they were different heights. I placed the stem into the back center of each bloom and then arranged them in my vase, adding other faux greenery and florals with it. And when I was finished, I had this adorable little patriotic floral arrangement. The Fisher House Foundation builds homes where military and veteran families can stay free of charge while a loved one is in the hospital. This is a great nonprofit supporting our military and veteran families alike. Please take a moment and visit the link in the description to learn more about Fisher House Foundation or to make a donation. Now for another patriotic DIY. I used 6 of the new to my Dollar Tree anyway, marshmallow-shaped blocks for the next DIY. I hot glued the blocks together and painted them with white chalk paint. And where, oh where, did that footage go? Using a small paintbrush, I painted red stripes on 5 of the blocks. I know I'm not a good freehand painter, but I couldn't figure out any other way to paint the blocks. When I was done, I think this turned out perfect, paint job and all. Once I had the stripes, I painted one block with blue acrylic paint. I had to use the acrylic paint because I couldn't find the blue chalk paint. Once the paint was dry, I used a stencil to apply little stars to the blue section. And then scuffed it up with 220 grit sandpaper. I sealed the piece with some matte Mod Podge and just look at how stinking cute this American flag turned out. I think it is so adorable. Please take a second to like this video and leave me a comment. This really helps my channel to grow so others just like yourself can find me. If you just found me, I hope you will join our little family by hitting the subscribe button. If you are already part of the family, thank you so much for your love and support. Y'all are the absolute best. Check out my new Amazon store for craft supply and farmhouse home decor recommendations. All the products I use from Amazon in my videos can be found there. Until next time, happy crafting!